Hello, welcome to Tuesday's tarot tutorial video. Today I would like to talk about the cards that represent twin aspects, specifically looking at card images depicting duality, mirroring, and balance. The cards I want to touch upon are the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Devil card, the Star, Temperance, Moon, and Chariot cards. These are good for partnerships, working together, or making a better decision in which way to approach a situation, and so forth. The twin cards are best used in readings as significator cards because they all represent an idea or specific energy that can be further elaborated on as being described by equal or opposite energies. So an example of how you could do this in a reading is to use a technique where you can pull one card on each side to see what twin aspects are being revealed. In this way, you can see the otherness in the spread, and you can do this to get a perspective from another point of view as well, other than the one side, either to see which side you yourself are on, or to see how the other person views the same situation you're viewing. So, for example, the Hierophant can show our lessons versus ignorance. This card represents norms, traditions, and rites of passage. And the duality is seen in this card by the monks that are seated on the other side of this priest here in the center. It can also be students or anyone that is like learning lessons. So this is why it's good to look at lessons versus ignorance. So the more pious energy that this card represents can answer is maybe, am I learning more toward religion and ritual, or maybe am I learning more towards the spirituality and using my intuition? Or possibly, what are the lessons that me and my partner are currently learning? Especially since this card is a marriage card, this would be good for assessing what you are currently learning and what you are teaching others. So let's go ahead and just do an example of what that might look like. You can ask, what are me and my partner learning? Or what am I teaching others? And what are they teaching me? So it looks like, for example, let's say you're on this side, you're learning about love coming from non-attachment as well. You're learning about really the highest aspect of love is the Knight of Cups, which is just sort of, it can embody forgiveness. It can embody love on a spiritual level and not having any sort of attachments, which can be healthy, right? So what your partner is learning is maybe learning how to communicate, also maybe spontaneous and live in the moment. But both of these energies are really learning the lesson of receiving from the other person. So this is what you can use, for example, with the Hierophant card. For the Lovers card, this can show the duality of free will versus conformity. So these figures are in the Garden of Eden, faced with choices to eat from the tree of life or the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the dichotomy is seen with these two equal but opposite figures that represent the masculine and the feminine principle. So this card is good for analyzing relationships. So you can ask something like, what is the perspective that I am coming from versus what is the perspective that my partner is coming from? And they both look like they're coming from a place of harmony. This is definitely harmony. Home is important to you. Stability is important to you, and possibly family. And they're coming from, the perspective of love and offering their heart. So this can sort of give like an indicator of the dual nature in your relationship. And you can find out whether or not you are in alignment with your partner at this current time and what twin aspects are being revealed. So by the cards that I pulled with the Four of Wands and the Cup, this would answer that question of yes, we are in alignment. So the Devil now is seen with the dichotomy, again, with the equal but opposite figures that represent the masculine and the feminine, just as they do in the Lover's card. Only this time we're in a situation where they are possibly slave to sexual impulses or whatever is a vice, right? So the vice, the twin of vice would be virtue. So this could be the vice versus virtue card as seen with this couple. So in the same way as the Lover's card, we could ask, what am I struggling with in this relationship, as well as what is my partner struggling with in the relationship? In some ways, you could be mirroring each other or coming from completely opposite ends of the spectrum. So this is a good way to compare. So what you're struggling with is the Magician. So the Magician is the do-it-yourself card. It's the singular one energy. It's the Magician really works on his own. So he is an autonomous figure. Okay, so you may be struggling to relinquish some of the power to the relationship and do less on your own and actually include your partner in things. Looks like your partner is struggling with loss, maybe some failed expectations that they had, or maybe sort of clinging to the past, or crying over spilt milk is a term that's commonly used for this card. So this is just an example of how you could use the Devil card as the twin card energy. So the Star card would be the higher self versus the earthly self, connected to either the watery spiritual realm of the soul or the land and the earthy physical nature. As you can see, this figure is pouring out 2 jugs of water, one back into the water, which is feeding the soul and, you know, the collective consciousness of humanity. And the other jug of water is being poured onto the land, and it's sort of streaming out here into 5 separate little streams here. And that represents the 5 senses, the 5 earthly senses of being in the human body. So in this way, it's showing the equal and opposite aspects of your higher self and your earthly self. So it's possible that you could ask, how am I connecting with my higher power? Again, the Four of Wands is coming up. I don't think I shuffled these that well. Let's use a different example. Make sure to really get them in there. So for example, you could ask, what am I currently allowing myself to receive help on? And what am I currently giving of myself to others? Okay, so how are you receiving? How are you giving to others? Okay, so this is how you're receiving. Is you're actually working well within, you know, your group of friends or your soul tribe, right? So this would be your tribe of people working together well, negotiating, compromising, and also delegating responsibility when needed is sort of a way to receive in that manner. Okay, it looks like the way you're giving, it looks like you're being spread a little bit too thin. Maybe giving, this card could be indicating that you're giving a little bit too much of yourself, right? And it's interesting that we do have the 5 wands here that is connected to what these little 5 offshoots of this stream are representing here. So notice these extra symbologies here. It would just sort of amplify or magnify the meaning that's coming through the card. So it's just saying, okay, the 5 senses, everything is a little bit, you know, fiery and active, maybe a little bit overactive. So maybe bringing that back into balance to, you know, allowing yourself to receive from other people, receive help from other people. Okay. So for the Temperance card, this is a card that represents striking a balance between polar opposites. So this would be the quintessential twin card energy. For example, we have hot versus cold, or a yes versus no. It's the exact opposite of the other. So you can literally ask this card a yes or no question. So you could ask ahead of time which cup will represent which. So for example, the higher cup being yes and the lower cup being no. All right, so for example, you could ask, should I go to the movies with my friend this weekend? Let's ask yes and no. Of course you should go. You have the Page of Pentacles, which would, you're viewing something and looking at something carefully. There is an opportunity here to be with your friend. If you don't go, it looks like you're going to feel left out. Maybe there's another person that's going. Maybe there's like 2 or 3 of you that are going to be going to this movie. This is about being left out in the cold. So if you don't want to be left out, yes, go. So it could be something as simple as that. For example, if you want to just ask like a yes, no question. Let's see, what else does this card stand for? It's a good card to show an answer, especially if you're being on the fence about something, or if you are literally running hot and cold on something. It can give you more clarity on a decision. It can also represent the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind, because you can see this figure here is actually standing 1 foot on land and 1 foot actually dipping into the water here of the subconscious mind. It's very much has a similar energy to the Star card with the connection to the earth and the water. But this card more feels like rejuvenation and bringing healing energy to the individual, whereas the Star card feels more like help and healing energy to the masses, not just on a personal level. So you can also ask with this card, in what area of life am I healthy and what area do I need to work on? Let's just pull for an example. Where am I healthy? What do I need to work on? Okay, so it looks like, I always look at this card as having sort of a Jupiter energy. The Wheel of Fortune is about luck, expansion, and keeping things moving and flowing, right? So movements in your body. So exercise, it looks like you're doing this well. It looks like it's good for circulatory things since it's a circular wheel. So looks like this is a positive indicator for like blood sugar levels. You're getting all of these things under control and you're doing this well. What you could work on possibly is letting go of worry, because this card is a very worrisome character. And, he's sort of anticipating the worst. So this is something that you could work on, for example. So as far as like health with your mind, body, soul, this would be a good twin card energy indicator here. So I want to talk about the moon next. So the dog or the wolf in this card would represent the question of friend or foe. Okay, we don't know. This card can represent dual aspects of the self's psyche, of our psyches, are where we have self-sabotage versus self-loyalty and respect. It can also be the domesticated versus the wild self. In what ways are you holding back that you really want to let loose? Okay, so in this way, you could ask the card, maybe, what way am I being a friend to myself? And what way am I sabotaging myself? Okay, so for example, you're being a friend to yourself. This is the child card, right? It's the past, it's children, it's sweet things. You're being very kind to yourself. You're being gentle with yourself and the way that you're thinking. You're handling yourself with like kid gloves, basically, which is, it's good. It's a gentle, kind energy. So that's how you're being a friend. For example, how you could be a foe to yourself. Well, it looks like, putting too much emphasis on other people's opinions could be one, or maybe putting someone up on a pedestal as well that could be the case. Comparing yourself to other people is maybe a way of self-sabotaging. That would be an indicator with the Three of Pentacles card. So this shows like your current psyche and the twin aspects of your mind, what's going on. So lastly, I want to talk about the Chariot as the twin card that can show balances and imbalances. I always see these two sphinxes as being like black and white, polar opposites. They're equal and opposite, but they're both balanced because they're like the wheels that are pulling this chariot or this cart forward. And if one wheel is higher than the other, if there's a flat tire, you know, you're going to be off balance, so to speak. You know, it's just sort of a figure of speech here, but we see the Chariot card as having this charioteer here in the center, and he's in control. So this card can show the lack of, you know, lack of self-control, or it can show in what ways that you are in control. And also the lighter Sphinx versus the darker Sphinx can show maybe the shadow self versus the enlightened self or the conscious self of awareness. So it's possible you could use this card to ask, you know, what am I currently aware of? All right. And maybe what is hidden to me? Oh, the same cards keep coming up. I am shuffling here. So, for example, you know, what is conscious to me? Hope, faith, movement forward. You know, you're definitely connected with this sort of Jupiterian energy, which can also be about teaching. Okay, teaching and learning, and that's the way that you have some sort of enlightenment. Okay, so like learning spiritual concepts, spiritual principles is sort of enlightening to your being. And in what aspects of the shadow self, what are you not aware of? Okay, well, again, we have the childhood card, but I'm seeing it as like things from the past. You know, the shadow self represents the subconscious, and things could come up from the past that we have forgotten. We have a really, you know, remarkable way, actually, of forgetting things. So there could be some things that are hidden to you about the past is possible, or something to do with children. You can also use this card, since it's literally a charioteer, like in a vehicle that's driving down the road or on a specific path. You could ask, you know, how should I move forward? And you say you keep in mind like a question of something that you want to progress forward on. And if you have an option, you could say with option A or with option B. Okay, to see which really looks like a more favorable option. I always see the major arcanas as having a little bit more weight and a little bit more of authority. So with the Hermit card would definitely be like, you know, listen to your wise self, listen to yourself. You don't need any input externally from other people. And, you know, option B over here would be like, you know, listening, observing, and maybe even doing a little bit of research. But even he is looking towards the Hermit. So looks like the cart would be like tipped towards this option of, you know, using your inner resources to move forward with, you know, whatever it is. So you can rely on the images that come up to give you, you know, suggestions. So these are just some ways that you can view these twin energy cards that show balance, duality, and mirroring within them. So I hope you enjoyed this tarot tutorial. Thank you for watching, liking, and sharing my videos, and for subscribing to my channel.